Good morning, everybody, and welcome. This is our September 11th regular meeting of the Mason County Commission. Before we do anything, before we have our Pledge of Allegiance, a roll call, if I have the indulgence of the other commissioners, we will take a moment of silence to remember this incredible day on the history of our country and the lives that were lost, the families that were separated. And let's hope we never forget it. So please, one moment of silence. Thank you, everybody. We have a first responder in the room, and if you don't mind, Chief Darren Moody, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today?
Actually, here's a resident, not a chief, but that's okay. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, Chief, but no matter where you go, there you are. Same with our veterans that are here today. Roll call, please.
Commissioner District 1, Randy Netherland.
I'm here.
Commissioner District 2, Kevin Shooting.
Here.
Commissioner District 3, Terry Drexler.
Here.
Item number 4, correspondence and organizational business. Do we have any correspondence to come before this body?
Yes, Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board sent a liquor license application for Allen Community Association held at Allen Waterfront Park, 18560 State Route 3 in Belfair. And the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, sent in a letter regarding comments from LB Kriegnow.
Thank you. Is there any other correspondence or organizational business to come before us today? All right, next up is item number 5, which is our open forum for citizen input. This is your opportunity to come and speak to the commission about an item, any item that is not on the agenda. If it is on the agenda, we ask that you wait and you'll be given an opportunity to speak at that time. But if it's not on the agenda, this is your opportunity. We ask that you raise your hand, be recognized by the board, by the commission. We'll ask you to come up front. Everything is on the record, so we'd ask that you please share your name with us and perhaps where you're from. With that being said, please remember, 5 minutes per person maximum, 15 minutes for everybody, so please be brief. Please.
I'll be real brief, about 15 minutes, so that this continues on over longer than the projection. Steve Bloomfield, Southeast 391, Dahman Road, Shelton. Couple of really, I like to dwell on positives. Hey, thank you, Jerry Howell, and your department for the way you've kept our county roads this year. I can't believe the dedication of the crews and what's happened. It's a shining example in the state of Washington for what can be done. Thank you. Appreciate it. Pat Grover, the Noxious Weed Board, whenever there's a cut in funding, Pat gets nailed. This year I watched two gentlemen in a county truck pull up and start pulling weeds on the side of the roads at Tansy, and they made about 5 miles in one day. Now this wasn't a weed here or there, this was a solid blanket of weeds. Those guys worked their tail off. They need recognition, they need a pat on the back, and I'm here. I can do that a little bit. You guys do it too. We have some exemplary people working for us. The other thing is, I've been working for a few years now with the truancy board, sitting on the truancy board with the Superior Court, going through these cases, and more recently trying to fit into the diversions board for juvenile sentencing. And I think both are worthwhile. And we have all the talk of a new jail, the need for a new jail. Not saying it's not needed, not saying upgrades aren't needed, but the best way to avoid that expense is invest in our youth. get them out of that system, get a different mindset, get them away from drugs, get them away from the influences that cause the problem, and get them going down the right road. We can do that. I know we can be effective doing it. We have to have a mindset change. It's the mental health of the community that's at stake, and by golly, we need to grab onto it and work on that end of things. Let's not spend $100 million on a jail. Let's spend $100 million on the youth, so we don't have the problem. Thank you.
Steve, Mr.
Please.
Chair, thank you for bringing up the truancy board and thank you for serving on it. One of the reasons we wanted to set up this new truancy board and the way we're doing it, as opposed to in the courts, doing it in the schools and with citizens being on the board, was to do some creative planning and sentencing, or whatever you want to call it. Do you have some examples of some of the things that you might have that the board has done to help bring a kid back on track? And I hate to put you on the spot, but if you do,
I don't want to get into specifics, but I'll tell you, sometimes kids do things out of, they get fed up to the point where they have to retaliate. Something will go on, a bullying incident at school. It'll go on for 2 years. They'll talk to the people at school. Nothing happens. Nothing happens at the school level. They may call a kid and say, hey, don't do it anymore. That don't cut it. You have to have some kind of consequences. And finally the kid snaps and there's a fight. Then the kid that threw the first punch, they're the one that's going to get the charge. They're the one that's at fault. And it really isn't their fault. It's because we failed in our system to get there. The truancy thing, I think, I don't know why I haven't got the numbers from last year. I think our first year we had 46 truancy cases. That's kids with more than 20 unexcused absences in 1 year. Some as high as 90 unexcused absences. I think we had a success rate of reestablishment on the first year of 42 out of 46 going back to school. Now that's pretty darn good. It's getting them going down the right road. The excuses are, well, my kid's 6 years old and I just can't get up to get him on the school bus. Well, that don't cut it with me. That don't cut it with me. And you say, well, why do you do drugs? Well, not in the house. Well, where do you do it? Well, in the carport. That don't cut it with me either. I can't have any sympathy for that. Now, the truancy legislation through the state is short legislation, is good legislation. We try to think. That thing's 16 pages long. It's not short. And it's very cumbersome. It's hard to understand. It needs some overhaul, but it's a first step, and we can make it work. We can make it work, but we need a greater effort at the lower end to get that to happen. To understand there's problems earlier. At the end of a school year, everything's wiped out. The kid goes to school the next year. He may have had 30 unexcused absences. The next year, he starts the same program up. Same problem, and it's a fresh start. Then he's failed 30 more days before we see him. That's wrong. That should be carried over, and if there's a pattern, we should be able to interdict in the problem and get it stopped sooner. And if there's anything at all, if there's a way I can help, I'll be glad to do it. I think both programs are very worthwhile. And I'm still learning the ropes on the deferred sentencing stuff, but I'd like to be a little more hands-on than what we can do.
Thank you. Former Commissioner Bloomfield, for those that don't know, out in the audience or out on the TV, he's a former commissioner. He's up there on that wall. And thank you for all the service that you do in this community.
No, it's my pleasure, and it's part of the community, and there's ways to prevent, but I think citizens the next citizen wants to
Well,
talk about.
we will find
To
out.
help him.
Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to testify or talk,
Not testifying.
or no, come in and talk on any issue that's not on the agenda?
Swear on the oath.
Yeah.
My name's Darren Moody. I'm a resident of Mason County. And I echo what Steve said. You'd think we had this thing timed out perfect because Steve was also instrumental in bringing together a group called Graduation Matters Shelton, which is helping the kids out there. We're having the after-school programs. In fact, yesterday was the first day for the kickoff of the after-school at Choice. I'd encourage anybody to go over to Choice after school and see the kids over there. Yesterday, pizza was delivered. Today, I think they're cooking. So it's a cool program, and I would echo wholeheartedly if we can get them into programs to help them rather than have them end up in jail. And that kind of segues to where I'm going today. As you well know, the city of Shelton has a contract with the jail. I'm speaking as a resident today and somebody with a little bit of knowledge in law enforcement. I've been sitting on a group called the Criminal Justice Working Team for a period of about 3 or 4 years now. In 3 or 4 years, we've seen no movement. And when I say no movement, there's been no progress in any kind of formation or movement toward it. We seem to take a few steps forward. I think Mr. Pinter sits on it with me once in a while. We take a few steps forward, we get excited about the thought of going out and finding jail alternatives, and then we take a few steps back. And I need to tell you first, I'm not here today to talk in support or against this commission or the sheriff's office. In fact, Sheriff Halsbury doesn't even know I'm here. But I will tell you that it's getting a bit frustrating. It's getting very frustrating. We can book people in jail for a misdemeanor possession of pipe paraphernalia, but I can't book them in for the ball of methamphetamine they have in their left hand. People are not getting put in jail that need to be. I can tell you as a resident, again, and Mr. Dorsey can probably echo this at some point if he felt like it, but I estimate at least 200 people walking the streets of this area with warrants that need to be put in jail and held accountable that can't, that are not booked into jail. Warrants for assault on police officers that we have contact with on a daily basis that we can't book into jail. I don't have all the answers. I don't have an easy solution to this, but I know what it's going to take is some people putting aside some of the egos, some of the bruised egos, some of the past, and just move forward. An example would be, 3 years ago when I came to this community, somebody asked what the biggest issues were, and I said, we need some detox beds and we need some mental health beds in our community. Working Commissioner Jeffries, of course, when you open your mouth, you end up on a board, and I ended up on the Behavioral Health Organization board following that. The good news is, Mason got seats at the table with the Thurston Mason board, and they've broken ground and we started building a mental health facility. But yet we're in the same boat we were with the jail facility. And again, we got to start getting creative. Would we love to have $100 million to build a new jail? Absolutely. That's not reality today. But we need to start thinking of creative alternatives and figure out how we're going to do this. I work for an organization right now that's in their own budget crisis. And so I know what that takes, but at times we've got to really step up and go, how do we get creative? What is the most important thing in the community right now? We want people to come to this community, want to feel safe. And routinely I'll go to community meetings and tell people I can't book them into jail. And I get it, it's a county jail. I was told and warned to be careful going over there and speaking about this because they'll revoke your jail contract. The county will pull it because they're angry at what you said. And I said, I don't think anybody in there wants that for the community. I don't think the sheriff's office, I don't think anybody on the commission would do that as retaliatory. I just think we need to come up with some alternatives. We've seen the crime rates increase, and I know the sheriff got up, I think it was over a year or two ago, and said something about if we start putting on booking restrictions, the crime rate's going to go up. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure that one out, and they are. We're seeing the crime rates creep up. We've explored other options of what we can do for jails, but I think it's a shame that it comes to other options that the only incorporated city in this county has to go to another county to provide services that we can't provide here. So I just want to keep you in the loop and keep moving forward and keep people out there knowing that there is a jail crisis in this community right now. And we need to come up with some creative alternatives to fix it.
Chief, do you have any alternatives because I'm not on that committee, do you have any alternatives they've come up with? The last time we invested $1.5 million to expand the jails, we held as many as 151 inmates, and then we spent $1.5 million to expand it, and now we're holding 80. Is there any options that have come up out of there,
Well,
short of a new jail? Because a new jail would take a full bonding, we'd have to go out to the public and
You know, and I think that's the fear, is we are so risk averse in this community right now about things like that. Alex Apostle came into this community as a new member of this community, and within a year, he's got a bond and new schools being built. I think it's that kind of support and unity that is needed between all the community, county, city, and everybody getting together. One of the latest alternatives, and I think Mr. Pinter was looking into it, was, and I think it's great that we're looking at this, why can't we share it with another county? Why can't we look at Grays Harbor and go, they're having similar issues, why can't we share it? You know, and I get it, it becomes an issue of county seat holding the courthouses, because if we build a jail, now the judges want the courthouses rebuilt. And they do, they need it. But I think it's that constant, well, if he gets it, I get this. If he gets it, I get this. Instead of just looking as a holistic thing of how do we fix this issue. I can tell you we have a police department in the city that is over half with under 2 years experience at that police department. I can tell you, and this sounds a little bit arrogant maybe for them, but if I told them go out and arrest everybody with a warrant, let's go take people to jail, we could put 150 people in jail in about 3 days. And you know, right now we outsource, or the city outsources several to a couple different cheaper organizations out there in Forks and Nisqually once in a while. DOC uses Nisqually. I just think we got to look at, it's not going to be one fix. It's similar to budget issues we have. It's not going to be one axe that's going to come across and wonderfully it's going to fix the budget. It's going to be a bunch of pieces come together. And whether that be some outsourcing again through the county and the city, I don't know. You know, it's frustrating to go in those meetings, and we've all had those meetings where you go into them and you feel like you're at the same meeting 3 years ago that you're at today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak on any issue that is not on the agenda? Hearing none, we will move forward to item number 6, which is the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move adoption of today's agenda as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded for the adoption of the agenda as presented. Any further additions or subtractions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Item number 7, approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move the approval of the June 5th, July 17th, and August 14th regular meeting minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for the approval of the June 5th and July 17th and August 14th, 2018 regular meeting minutes. Any addition or subtractions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Item number 8 is the approval of the action agenda. All items listed under the action agenda may be enacted by one motion unless a commissioner or citizen requests an item be removed from the action agenda and considered as a separate item. We will read each of the items to the public. You'll be given an opportunity to ask a question, or if you're going to testify, we ask that you please have it removed, and you'll be given an opportunity to testify at that time. With that being said, Commissioner Drexler, will you read item 8.1? Commissioner Schutte, 8.2. I will read 3 and 4.
Item 8.1, approval to accept a resignation from Western Sharer Denise Sharer, effective August 23, 2018, and to approve the release and hold harmless agreement to release and forever discharge Mason County, its officers, agents, employees, agencies, and departments from any and all existing future claims, damages, and causes of action, foreseen and unforeseen, of any nature whatsoever, arising out of Weston's employment with Mason County, and to pay the sum of $11,742.60 as agreed.
Item 8.2, approval to authorize the chair to sign the Title VI non-discrimination agreement annual update and accomplishment report for the reporting period from May 1st, 2016 to April 30th, 2017.
Item number 8.3 is approval of the following warrants. Treasurer's electronic remittance for August 2018. The total is $181,582.22. Item number 8.4, approval to appoint Morgan Ireland to the Mason County Planning Advisory Commission for a term ending January of 2020. Now these items have been read to you. Is there anybody in the public who have any questions that may help them decide whether to have it taken off for a separate vote? Is there any items they'd like taken off for a separate vote? Commissioners? I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move approval of items 8.1 through 8.4 on today's action agenda.
And I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded for the approval of the action agendas, item 8.1 through 8.4 with nothing removed. Any comments or additions?
No.
Nope.
Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. That brings us to other business. Department heads and elected officials. Is there any department heads or elected officials who would like to speak at this time? Hearing none, we will move to item number 10, which there are no public hearings, which brings us to 11, board reports and calendars. Commissioner Schutte, if you would lead us off, Commissioner Drexler, and then myself.
Sure. Mr. Chair, just a couple items from last week. First, I had a chance to attend the Mason Transit Authority Volunteer Appreciation Lunch last week, and it was a great opportunity to chat with some of their volunteer drivers and thank them for their service in the community. The volunteer drivers are driving approximately 6,000 miles a month for Mason Transit, and so that's a substantial benefit to the people that they are helping transport from all variety of appointments, a lot of doctor appointments in and around the area, and so it's just great to see that program continue to grow. If anybody is watching and interested and has the time, I encourage you to contact Haley Mason Transit to maybe get some more information about how you can help out with that very beneficial program. Another item from over the weekend, I had a chance, our parish, Prince of Peace in Belfair, has an annual Back the Badge breakfast right around this time every year in honor of our local first responders as a lead up to the remembrance of 9/11. And it was great to see Chief Bo Bakken bring some of his firefighters and paramedics from North Mason Fire Protection Authority there, as well as members of the Mason County Sheriff's Office. In addition to that, our parish's St. Monica's Guild took goodie bags over to the fire stations in our parish boundaries, and so there were that's Fire District 3, Fire District 5, and of course Fire District 2, as well as the North Precinct for the Sheriff's Office, just as a way to say thank you, as we all should and do, in particular as we remember the events of 9/11. Looking ahead this week, we have the opioid stakeholder meeting this week, and then I have a Mason Transit agenda setting meeting. I'll also be meeting with Scott Brewer from the Hood Canal Coordinating Council, and then I'll be in Spokane Thursday and Friday for the State Building Code Council. Back Monday for briefings in the Sierra Pacific Mill dedication, which should be an exciting event for us here in the county and certainly in the city. And then back for our regular meeting on Tuesday.
Thank you. Following last week's meeting, I attended the Oakland Bay Clean Water District Committee. There's a potential in March when they do the changes, and any potential changes of aquaculture, the conditionally approved and restricted harvested shellfish in certain areas of Oakland Bay, and there's a good chance that there'll be some sections of the far end of Oakland Bay down there off of Highway 3 that will come off the list, but not the entire section, but we're going to move forward on those. We had a really robust discussion about how effective the outreach is of our environmental health folks to talking to people personally about septic maintenance, and that touch is, the personal touch is so much, has been chosen by this county as opposed to finding people who do not follow the regulatory septic maintenance. We had yesterday a presentation by what will be our new online permitting system, and the group came up with a really, I think, great idea as one of those opportunities of the online system, and the opportunity to electronically communicate with all the staff in our community services department, potentially when somebody does apply for a permit, that could signal an opportunity to go talk to them, because they'll be having county people coming on onto their property throughout the whole permitting process. So after we get this thing online, my hope is that this will also serve as some sort of extra touch to meet with our residents about ensuring the importance of having their septic systems maintained to keep our water quality. We had a budget advisory committee meeting. This was our first one where we actually got to come down and talk about some policy potentials. We went through all of the revenue options that are available to the county that we have not used and utilized. And there's still a very high learning curve, as it would be with any citizen in Washington State, about what is a levy lid lift and how is it done and what are the impacts of it. And we had a really robust discussion about that, as well as some other options. And so they'll be coming back with some of the ones they want to recommend, if there are any, for the commission to consider. Following today's meeting, we'll have some interviews for some citizens to be on our Housing and Behavioral Health Advisory Board meeting. And then tomorrow, I'll attend our ORCA meeting, and then we'll do a tour of Grays Harbor Energy. And then I will be speaking to residents at Maple Glen Assisted Living in honor of Assisted Living Week. And then Friday, I'll have a meeting of the Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Organization agenda setting, as well as the Executive Finance Committee of the Pac Mountain Workforce Development Council. And then back here for briefings on Monday. I will also be attending the SBI dedication on Monday.
Met with some folks in regards to some land use issues. Commissioner Drexler recommended that they come and talk to me, and so I sat and I talked to them and tried to help them through that, and we're working that process through. Mason Transit Authority Building Committee, I met with a local business owner here in Shelton on how to expand. I met with a candidate for the Mason County Commission position. We had our briefings. After this meeting, we'll be having those interviews for the Housing and Behavioral Health Board. I have a law library meeting. I have a meeting of the ARC tonight. I have an opioid stakeholder meeting, which we will both be at. The Peninsula Regional Transportation Organization, the Mill Dedication, Economic Development Council. There's an event this next Saturday, the Cornhole event, where they raise money for the firefighters. It's a huge event. It actually turns out to be very profitable for them. It's very fun. Everybody should take the time to show up and come on out. It will be at behind the Bent Vine in Belfair, and that brings us back for our briefings, and we start all over again. Is there anything further to come before us? Anybody have anything?
No.
We're at the end of our agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that.